All right, folks, it is time to jump into the good stuff here because today we are talking about identity governance, protection, and administration. And this is an interesting topic to explore because I think we all know that identity is more and more top of mind, especially as network perimeters expand. You know, IT professionals are now considering every user's laptop, their phone, not to mention SaaS logins, strategies for remote and hybrid workforces. The list goes on, and the challenges are rising. But that's why we're here today, because there are answers, there are solutions. And today we're going to be hearing from top experts from StrongDM and Okta. This is going to be a great chat, and I can't wait to jump in. So let's get started. And I introduced myself a little bit at the top, but just to reiterate, and if we haven't met before, my name is Jess Steinbach. I'm going to be your moderator here today. Now, Keith Ward is in the wings with our keynote speaker, and so we'll be chatting with him shortly. And Scott Becker is here with us on live chat. And in one last piece of good news, we have three $300 Amazon gift cards that we will be giving away today. So you could win one of three of these awesome Amazon gift cards. Now, I mentioned this in the housekeeping chat earlier, but you do need to be here live and present with us at the EcoCast. And you can find the full T's and C's linked for you there in the handouts tab if you do have any questions about that. All right, well, that was the last little thing. Man, we are cruising through this intro this morning, and we are all ready to get into our keynote speaker. So up to get us started on this EcoCast, we are going to be chatting with Larry Seltzer, IT journalist, security writer, CISSP. And today, we've asked Larry to join us for a quick chat, a little bit of an interview discussion with the one and only Keith Ward, my fellow moderator here at Actual Tech Media. Now, Keith, I know you have a great discussion planned for us today. I can't wait to hear from you and from Larry. So I'm going to hand things on over to you. Take it away, Keith.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Keith Ward, a moderator with Actual Tech Media, and joining me for a special discussion on identity security trends today is Larry Seltzer. Larry's a veteran journalist and a security expert with a CISSP certification. He's also a developer, so he understands these issues from both sides, and we're delighted to have him with us today. Larry, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So let's dive right in. First question, something really on the top of everyone's mind. How is AI, and I guess a little more specialized ChatGPT, how are these things changing identity, governance, protection, and administration considerations for organizations?
Well, we're still in the early days of this AI large language model phenomenon. And while it's clear that there are great opportunities from it, it's still an unknown quantity to some degree. And so in other words, it constitutes a risk. So what are the risks and how should you address them? It turns out there's a new paper out that directly addresses this question. And I know about it because I was one of the editors on it. It's called A CISO's Guide to Generative AI and ChatGPT Enterprise Risks. And we'll get a link to that for you. It's written by an industry association of security executives called the Teammate CISO Village, and Teammate is a VC firm. The paper describes potential threats of these AIs, it includes policy guides and sample policies. So if you're wondering about how to address ChatGPT from a security perspective, this paper is the place to start. But a few important points from the paper. First, you have to assume that ChatGPT and the other generative AIs like Google Bard, Microsoft Copilot they're going to be widely used, including by users who might be a bit too credulous about their output. So some of the others, some are based, like Microsoft Copilot is based on the same AI as in ChatGPT. But if these systems are producing materials for you that come from your company, your responsibility in a legal sense for them might be murkier than normal. There's other potential threats like data leaks through the AI, and these are legit concerns in theory, but they've been overhyped by the media. So the most serious threats are less technical than legal and business threats. So sending confidential and private data outside of your organization's own servers, it's much the same as with any cloud provider, could trigger legal and compliance exposure. There are, I think it's fair to draw a distinction between the public systems, which basically means ChatGPT, and commercial products that might incorporate it, like Copilot. The fact is that Microsoft is already incorporating this tech into their own enterprise offerings, and that matters for something. But it's not enough to give an all clear to it at this point. I think you need to have policies that at least greatly restrict it for business purposes.
Gotcha. So, would you say right now that AI slash ChatGPT is the greatest challenge facing the identity governance protection administration space, or are there other ones? So I guess kind of an open-ended question here. If that's not the greatest challenge, what would you say is the greatest challenge or some of the greatest challenges?
These AI is, it's nowhere near the biggest challenge you have today. It's one that could develop into a big challenge, which is why you need to get on top of it and develop policies. But right now, I think it's always the stuff it's always been. So in terms of identity management and protection, that's really job one in many ways. If you fail at identity management, it's hard to do anything else right. Attackers are always looking to steal identities in order to abuse privileges. So as a general rule, there's a trade-off between the usability of systems and the strength of identity protection. So there's always going to be a battle with users over security measures. Data privacy and protection are, kind of the whole point of security, but they're hard to do because people want data to be accessible. That's a major challenge. Related to that is, governance and compliance generally. That's a major challenge for these concerns. There's always issues. I mean, AI is related to this, but it's not. But in general, companies are always dealing with regimes like GDPR and California's CCPA. Violations of them are expensive and embarrassing. And then there are many industries are heavily regulated and have their own compliance regimes. Like in the U.S., healthcare and finance come to mind as very heavily regulated industries. So complying without impeding efficient operations can be challenging, particularly for multinational corporations that operate in different jurisdictions with varying legal requirements. Here's one more threat. Here's one more problem that I think is generally underappreciated, and that's insider threats. In a way, it's the same as like identity management, because the point is to prevent users from unauthorized access to data and systems. But the fact is that security people need to be IT police at times, and nobody really likes getting in the way of their colleagues. And insider threats aren't all malicious, by the way. There's a lot of breaches that are just accidental. So these are some of the things that come to mind for major challenges.
Absolutely. So related to those topics that you've laid out here, I know there's some confusion in the industry about identity access management and privileged access management, which is often called PAM, identity access management, IAM. Do you need, so let's draw to privileged access management is some people think is almost a subset in a way of identity access management. So if you have identity access management, are you covered with PAM, with privileged access management? Do you even need it if you have identity access management?
Conceptually, they're the same thing, and PAM is kind of a form of IAM. But the shorter answer is you also need PAM because, IAM may have some basic PAM functions, but it won't match the capabilities of a purpose-built PAM. And PAM is really important. IAM, let's draw a distinction here. IAM is like for everyday identity management. everybody deals with it, even when interacting with public websites. You have login and password and privileges. It's for management of creating new identities, retiring them, And so these systems also manage things like single sign-on for when your corporate login gets you into Office 365, for instance. And a well implemented IAM will also have groups which correspond to users of particular types and privileges. So instead of managing individuals, you manage the roles and assign users to roles, and those roles have privileges. And this is called role-based access control. And it's an important concept, and it prevents a lot of mistakes, and it's an important function of IAM. But privileged access management, it's designed specifically for the most privileged and dangerous accounts. These are generally administrator accounts with high privileges and access to critical systems, and therefore they're capable of great harm in the wrong hands. So the point of PAM is to protect these accounts from misuse, and they always engage in measures that are excessive for normal IAM. So a good PAM system will identify privileged accounts in the network. It can manage sessions with the privileged accounts, both to monitor them and to record them. And it can elevate privileges of users for specific tasks if necessary and allowed under policy. Gotcha. So you need PAM. IAM does not get you PAM.
Got you. Thanks for untangling that. Finally today, Larry, let's talk about passwords. Still in wide use, feels like everybody uses them. We're starting to see more and more passwordless technology coming out now. Is this the future? Is this something that companies need to be moving to? And if so, how soon do you think this will be viable? And this will be, how soon before we see kind of mass adoption of passwordless technology?
First, I'm going to define passwordless, even though it basically means exactly what it sounds like, which is authentication without a password. Mm-hmm. And you might think it's distinct from two-factor authentication in that it disposes of the first factor, the password, and proceeds only with the second, but there's always more than that involved. And strictly speaking, the second factor could be a weak factor like a text message code. But when serious people talk about passwordless authentication, they're referring to FIDO keys, those little hardware keys that have cryptography chips in them. That prove the user identity cryptographically to the other system. Yeah. Now, so you really have to ask, what is the second factor if it's not a password? And the hot new answer now is something called passkeys. They're tokens that get created on a device like a computer or a phone. And they're tied to that device specifically. The idea is that this is part of the authentication is that somebody who has that device and has been able to log into that device, the operating system is satisfied with the identity of the user, then the site will allow that user to log in. And usually using them now usually involves your phone. So the site may see the passkey, but you'll also get a QR code that you can scan with your phone, and then the phone will provide the second factor to the site. So these things are brand new. They're good standard. They're based on solid tech, but they're brand new. They are, so actually getting back to the question to address that. Yes, absolutely. Passwordless should be a goal. To the second, is it viable? The short answer is increasingly. You can, at least with enterprise licenses now, you can set up Office 365 and Google Workspace with passwordless authentication. You can log into Windows without passwords now. There's a good argument that passwords are a problem. Even if you're using them as best as possible, even if you have a strong second factor, because it's often possible to socially engineer your way into a two-factor system with just the password. And the systems are getting better at cracking passwords, even if they're properly stored. And password attacks are still incredibly common. I just saw, I don't know how they got the number, but Microsoft recently reported that in 2022, overall, there were 921 password attacks per second. Think about that.
Wow.
So I don't, like I said, I don't know where they get that number, but that's a big number. So
it's a scary world out there, and anything we can do to make it more secure is obviously an aim that every company should have. Larry, really appreciate your time today and your comments on identity governance, protection, and administration. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, thanks to both of you. What a great way to kick off our EcoCast today. I am so excited to get to continue this conversation a little bit. And I saw some really interesting questions coming in over the chat as well. And I do think that this is something that sparks a lot of conversation for us. There are a lot of questions around identity. There's a lot of questions around ChatGPT. There's a lot of questions for all of us that we're kind of addressing in both our personal and professional lives. And there's some interesting crossover in these types of conversations between that, things that affect us as humans and things that affect us as professionals. So really fun to kind of dig in a little bit with all of you. And we've got lots more coming. So keep those creative juices flowing, keep those heads in the game because we are just getting started here. I've got a poll question up for all of you. And what we're wondering is, what is your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? So, when you're thinking about some of the solutions and tools that we're going to be digging into today, are you thinking a little more short-term? Are you thinking a little more long-term? Again, there's no wrong answers here, and we're not reporting any of this back to your employees or employers. What we're wondering is just making sure that we're getting you the information that's helpful for you based on kind of where you're at. So if you're a little more in that research phase versus a little more in the action phase, we want to make sure that we're feeding you the resources that are going to be helpful. So let us know where you're at. And just so you guys know, I'm seeing mostly not sures today. Most of the people responding out there are in that not sure category, which is great. That means we're all still kind of in that theoretical, in that research phase. We're a little bit more planning ahead and just getting all the information that we can. And that's an awesome place to start an EcoCast. So speaking of which, let's get started on the EcoCast. Now, to get us started today, we have a presenter that I'm sure quite a few of you will recognize this name and soon to be this face, because Herman has been a regular here at EcoCast and MegaCasts, and it always brings a lot of really insightful information and interesting ideas. So we are definitely kicking things off on a great note here with Herman Hesse, Vice President Solutions at Strong DM. Herman, thank you so much for being here with us today to get us started on the EcoCast. Now, I can't wait to hear more about Strong DM and identity governance, so I am going to hand things on over to you. Take it away, Herman.
Hi. Identity is officially now the perimeter. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about, something that is top of mind as we enter a new phase of remote work across all of our organizations, and how the role of identity is critical in securing that infrastructure that we work with. My name is Herman Hesse, and I'm the VP of Solutions here at Strong DM. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the role of identity and access management, and how we can take that to plan for tomorrow's employees, tomorrow's infrastructure, and tomorrow's emerging security needs. We know this, so this is not going to be new to you, but remote work is effectively the new normal. Today, the way we work and the world has changed. Headquarters have disappeared. The idea of a simple, secure infrastructure has gone and vanished along with it. Centralized IT and corporate networks have now been replaced by a decentralized workforce of employees scattered all over the place. They could be different time zones, different cities, different parts of the world. All of these people need access to do their jobs, regardless of where they might be physically located. Employees are all too familiar with the ability to gain access to work applications and technical resources through almost any internet-connected device. As a result, they want and expect this anywhere access. The definition of a technical employee continues to evolve. These people need access to more resources and more of that data. That data is stored in places all over the place. either for regulatory reasons or for technology reasons. It could be data sovereignty, or it could be the app needs the data to be as close as possible to it. So the data could be anywhere. The idea of the technical employee is now, in my opinion, unavoidable, right? These employees, all of us, are now relying on data and technology in multiple ways, in multiple forms, to allow us to do our job. As such, we need access. Some of this is to what is often sensitive information and protected systems. The number of employees that fall in this category has increased exponentially and continues to do so. We're not just talking about secure point-in-time access for developers or engineers, but it goes beyond that. Data scientists, product managers, marketers, salespeople, and more. With the move to cloud computing, the breadth of access required completely tears down the idea of traditional security boundaries and forces us as IT practitioners to seek a new security model that can deal with this anywhere reality. Security, therefore, must evolve from that traditional, old school on-site protection model and adapt to be able to securely provide access to our ever-growing remote workforce. Next slide, please. The gates of identity have shifted. There's no debate around that, right? With more technical employees accessing critical and sensitive infrastructure that also has sensitive data inside or running on top of it, we need to ensure that all connections and access is secure and auditable. How do we do this? Traditional methods of security are no longer valid. With the change in the work environment, we need to change how we think about securing data and the infrastructure. Traditional security methods typically work by only putting a checkpoint in front of on the network. But however, once you're on that VPN, you now have access to the entire network if you know where to go. This design, this approach often leads to excessive privileges being granted and increases the risk to the company and increases the risk to the company by also expanding the attack surface. Next slide, please. A common practice for traditional security and securing remote access is to use a VPN. Our opinion here at StrongVM is that VPNs are no longer the answer. There are many issues that come with the VPN. They're not built for continuous use. They're not built for simplicity or to be simple. They often don't provide granularity in terms of visibility and activity around who can access what and how. And they're often lacking when it comes to performance in terms of speed. There are a lot of dependencies around that particular topic, and we can spend a decent amount of time talking about that, but that's not the idea today. We have to shift our mindset from network security and think more about identity security. Given our technical staff and individualized access to exactly what it is that they need when they need it. You know, as things have evolved, the use of open identity standards are a popular method for improving security through authentication, authorization, and provisioning. The standards that are in place today, and all of you are probably familiar with these: security assertion markup language, aka SAML, OAuth, and the system for cross-domain identity management, also known as SCIM. As these open identity standards become more and more popular and widespread, alongside the increasing adoption of mobile devices and cloud services, enterprises now have the ability to control what they need for improved security, strong authentication, while providing employees, customers, and partners what they want, i.e. access to cloud services, access to mobile apps or SaaS apps with more convenience, meaning they no longer have to worry about, they don't have to log in multiple times to get to something, and they no longer have to worry about, oftentimes you can remove the need to have to worry about where the credentials are or who has access to the actual credentials. In addition to seamlessly integrating with and complementing these open identity standards to control access, StrongVM gives you additional control over your technical employees. For example, we allow you to detect and investigate suspicious activity in every SSH, RDP, or database session that is made using StrongVM. With easy integration to any of your existing vaults, such as HashiCorp or AWS Secrets Manager, StrongDM is able to eliminate the need for your technical employees to access, manage, or worry about remembering credentials. With a solution like StrongDM, you can grant specific just-in-time permissions to external collaborators, and that could be partners, contractors. At the same time, you can integrate our access control API to any of your existing security and automation tooling. What does that mean? Like, we can integrate with your SIM tools, we can integrate with your automation infrastructures, code processes. All of this helps to make it difficult for attackers to break into your network using someone else's identity to gain access to your IT assets. In addition, the monitoring capabilities of a solution like StrongDM are often greater than those of a conventional private network. This is because your organization now has clear visibility into who has access to what, when, and what they're doing. Session capture and session replay is one example of how we do this. This all makes it easy for you to filter out suspicious activities and reduce your attack surface. I'll reiterate this again. The perimeter for the network has basically vanished. We need to start thinking about the perimeter in terms of the individual employee and what they have access to. This is why I started out this presentation by saying identity is now the new perimeter. With end users holding the keys to the kingdom, we need to seriously consider how we think about who has access to those credentials and what they're doing with those credentials. In 2022, the Data Breach Investigations Report says credentials were the main cause of data breaches. This just reinforces the point and the importance of keeping keys and credentials secure. When end users have access to all these, the keys or the credentials, problems can arise. There's additional risk. This same report also found that 82% of the breaches involved involved some sort of human element, right? So because some employee has access to these credentials or gave them to the wrong person, you now have a breach. That's the human element. When security gets too complex for humans to work with, they tend to look for workarounds. And what do those workarounds mean? This could be giving the credentials to someone who they think is trustworthy, or leaving them somewhere like in GitHub and exposing those credentials to a wider audience. All of this introduces risks, huge risks, not just to your business, but to your customers as well. Next slide, please. In an ideal state, your end users will only have access to just the 10 resources that they need, nothing more, nothing less. Access can be given through, by practicing things like least privilege or just-in-time access. These are just pretty straightforward best practices that form the foundation of any company's ability to get to zero trust security posture. As we see the shift to the cloud, how we interact with these resources and the infrastructure continues to change. Companies need to adapt beyond the traditional network perimeter security approach to an individualized identity-based approach to keep bad actors out. If you approach access from an identity perspective, you're able to enhance your security, your organization's security. And in the worst case scenario where someone does get access to an individual's credentials or a system's credentials, that attack would now be isolated just to the resources that individual has access to. What does the future of access management look like? Just pretty much, from my perspective, there's just four main areas, right? Individualized access, eliminating credential exposure, protecting the business from breaches, the ability to protect the business from breaches, also decreasing the negative impact to your brand. What do you need in a solution like, a solution to help get you to this, to help solve the problem of perimeters and new identity? I've covered a few different areas today, but I think the most important one is that access management is critical in keeping what is now and I don't think there's any going back, the fact that our workforces are now remote. How do we keep them secure? How do we keep their access secure? the features that you need in an access management solution that will continue to help protect your business as you grow that business and scale your infrastructure. It's not a very long list, but there's some important things to bear in mind. One, the solution should be cloud native. Two, solution that can support multi-cloud and hybrid infrastructures. A lot of your organizations are still in that process of having infrastructure in your data centers and in your cloud while you make that complete shift to the cloud-only infrastructure. It must be something that is built for the modern stack, meaning it should be able to support all of your databases, whether they're your modern NoSQL databases or they're your traditional SQL databases. They should be able to support that. Should be able to support your use of containers and clusters that come with that. The ability to secure your cloud consoles. So the solution must be cloud console aware. And at the same time, be able to seamlessly integrate with any of the existing secrets managers out there that most of you are likely using, like HashiCorp Vault or AWS Secrets Manager. StrongDM is a solution that works in your infrastructure today and addresses all of the points that I just raised in terms of what you need in a solution. It is designed to ensure that your connections or your employee connections to your infrastructure are secure and seamless and can be managed from a central control plane. It's pretty easy if you want to see more. You can sign up on my website for a free trial and teach yourself how to sort of go about using the product yourself, or you can book a live demo and someone from my team will be happy to walk you through the solution and how it works and what the benefits are. So on that note, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you, Herman. As always, such a pleasure and some really great information. And I think, addressing the reality of the world that we live in and like it or lump it, this is the workforce that we're working with and the style of workplace transformation that we're in. And that's really exciting, I think, for a lot of us. And those little stresses and challenges do have solutions, and that's why we talk to vendors that are here with us today, experts that are here with us today, and try to get as much information as we can so that we can address those challenges, because things maybe changed a little more rapidly than they would usually do, so we didn't have as much time to prepare, and now some of us maybe are feeling like we're catching up. And that's a really exciting time and a really challenging time. I feel like I've said those words a lot today, but it encompasses the situation that we're in. So if that's how you're feeling, is that tug of war between excitement and challenge, these types of solutions that we're going to be chatting about today are a great place to start. Now, speaking of which, I've got a poll up on the screen for you. And what we're wondering is what additional information you would like to get about the StrongDM solution. So if you heard something today that kind of sparked that little interest and you want to learn a little bit more, this is a great place to start. Click on data sheet, white paper, case studies, pricing info, demos, whatever you're interested in. Click on that and let the StrongDM team know how they can follow up with you. I'm also going to suggest that you head on over to the handouts tab if that demo is calling your name, because there's a link right there to sign up for your demo with StrongDM. And we all know that this is the best way to really get to know a solution, is to watch it in action, to kind of dig into it a little bit and see those features unfold. So please do go register for that demo and make sure that you spend a little time exploring that solution after we wrap. Now, while you're getting that demo registered and answering the poll, I am going to give away a prize. Now, before I do, we actually just got a really interesting question from an audience member, and it sparked a little conversation back and forth, and then our team was chatting about it. And I just wanted to share this with you because, we like having nice, open conversations here with our community, our actual tech media community. So one of our audience members asked, they were trying to get the $50 best question prize, and they said, well, can I use ChatGPT to generate questions and still win the prize? So here's the thing, and we'll just kick this around as humans, right? So we're here to have these conversations together because we want to engage and we want to learn, right? So if you're asking a question, if ChatGPT generated it, but you really actually do care about that answer, then sure, ask it. But what we're here for is to get to your questions, not what ChatGPT thinks you should be asking, but what you are wondering about, what your organization is wondering about. That's what we want to talk to you about. And keep in mind that it takes energy for you to ask a question. It takes energy for us to answer a question. We send all these questions to any team that doesn't get to it. There's live chat, there's people on live chat here, and then if they don't get to it, we send them to them afterwards. So they're following up over email. So there's lots of energy going in around those questions. And if that energy is worth it to you, you actually do want to know that answer, please ask that question, regardless of where you were inspired by. We want you to ask that question. But if you're just asking a question for the sake of asking the question, well, that just wastes energy on your part and our part. So keep that in mind. Again, we'll keep playing with this stuff. ChatGPT is new to all of us, and a lot of us are still figuring out how we want to, somebody asked earlier about plagiarism. These are interesting conversations to get into. And at the end of the day, I think what we would ask from actual tech is just, hey, we're here to talk to you. We want to dig into conversations with you. So if you're using AI to augment your questions, sure, as long as they're authentic and really coming from you and your own curiosity and what you need at your organization. So that's all we're going to say about that right now. And again, like I said, we're still engaging in this conversation as well. So if you're wondering about things like that, let us know, and we'll chat. So thank you to whoever asked that question, because it did spark a bit of an interesting conversation for us back here. All right, well, moving things along, I said prizes and then sidetracked with you. So in the Midwest, we call that a Minnesota goodbye, where oh wait, one more thing over here. So I won't Minnesota goodbye you anymore. Let's talk about prizes. All right, so we are going to give away a $300 Amazon gift card. And this is going to go to someone who is here live and present with us at the EcoCast. And our very first winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is Howard Fung of California. Howard Fung of California, congratulations to you. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap. Now, don't forget, there are still 2 more chances to win an Amazon gift card today. Plus, we do have that best question gift card from each one of our sessions. All right. Well, for now, we are going to keep things moving right along in our EcoCast, because we have another awesome session lined up for you. And I have to say, this EcoCast is short and sweet. So this is actually our last presentation of the day, which is the bad news. But the good news is that we are going to wrap it up with an absolutely fascinating conversation between 2 incredible experts, and I'm so excited to bring them out with us. Now, a few of you will have seen Maciel and Sam before, because we've had them on at previous EcoCast and MegaCast, and so you will know that their conversations are always interesting. They have a great flow and pace, and really get into the information and the why behind it. So I'm sure today will be no exception, and I am very excited to hear from them both. Maciel Martinez, Senior Product Marketing Manager, Identity Management at Okta, and Sam Katzen, Group Product Marketing at Okta. Maciel and Sam, thank you for being back with us again to close out our EcoCast today. It is always a great time with the Okta crew, and I can't wait to chat with you both. So I'm going to hand things right on over to you. Maciel, take it away.
Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today on our session on Okta Identity Governance. Before we get too deep into the weeds, a few housekeeping notes. First of all, just so you know that the session will be recorded, and you should all be receiving a copy sometime within the next 24 hours or so. Also, as I am going through the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat. We'll be answering them as we go along, and then we will likely have time at the end for some live Q&A as well. My name is Maciel Martinez, and I am a Senior Product Marketing Manager for Okta Identity Governance. And I am so excited to talk to you today about the new extended workforce and how adopting a unified IAM and IGA platform can help each of your companies with security and efficiency. But first, I want to give a quick thank you again to all of you for being here today. I also want to give a special thank you to our customers. At Okta, our #1 value is to love our customers, and we so appreciate and thank you for everything you do for us day in and day out. And to those of you who might be hearing our message for the first time, we want to say welcome, and we are thrilled to have you here. So let's get into it. So today, the modern workforce really goes beyond the traditional employee. It also includes contractors and partners that need to access corporate resources. This new extended workforce has also really embraced this hybrid model of being able to work from anywhere, really since the start of the pandemic. In fact, in a recent study published by Okta, we found that 82% of users prefer working in this hybrid mode. So this is clear evidence that today's workforce wants the ability to work from anywhere and use any device. And they also really want to be able to manage their own professional and personal responsibilities on their own time. And luckily, companies are supporting this by undertaking digital transformations and adopting more modern technology. But as companies are going through this transformation, IT teams are likely the ones most impacted. They really have to make sure that each and every identity has access to the applications that they need when they need it in order to remain productive. And as they are doing this, they also need to keep security at the top of mind. They need to make sure that they are granting the right level of access to each employee so that not one employee can go rogue. Lastly, due to the increasing regulation landscape, they are also working hand in hand with compliance teams across the organization to make sure that the company remains compliant with SOC 2 or PCI audits. So in order to support this new world of managing an extended workforce that accesses data from anywhere, it is critical for IT teams and companies to adopt an identity-first strategy. We're all familiar with zero trust, but what we must also recognize is that identity is the foundation for any zero trust architecture framework. Without a comprehensive identity-first strategy, companies risk exposing themselves to security breaches that could have severe implications, like missed revenue targets or tarnished reputations, all of which could be detrimental to any company. And even with all of this, today identity is solved in silos and not thought about holistically. For example, you may have a complex architecture of various identities spread throughout multiple Active Directory domains. You may also have an IAM system like Okta to protect your front door through SSO and MFA. And you may have yet another system for your identity governance and or privileged access in order to help meet your compliance requirements. But using all of these disparate systems makes it increasingly difficult to determine who has access to what systems, when did they get that access, how did they get that access, and should they continue to have that access. And as you can imagine, these siloed systems are delivering poor outcomes. IT teams are spending a lot of time creating custom connectors to connect the various identity systems, which leads to lower efficiency. And then because these custom connectors are being used, they can't pass signals and contexts throughout the various systems, which then reduces their security posture. And lastly, you have a frustrated workforce that is tasked with rubber stamping approvals, reviewers not wanting to certify access, and employees waiting to request and gain access to the applications they need to do their day-to-day roles. So in order to implement a modern identity-first strategy, IT teams and companies need to think about identity holistically and come to it with a unified approach. We need to bring to the table critical identity and access management capabilities that are going to protect your front door and make sure that employees are accessing their resources in a secure manner. And at the same time, protect and automate the backdoor to make sure that employees are getting onboarded effectively and to make sure that you have the right policy structures in place so that you are granting the right levels of access to each employee. So this integrated approach is critical to help drive the right productivity and security outcomes and enable companies and IT teams to be successful in tackling the newer demands of today. So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, all of this makes sense. Okta has historically been known for their IAM products. Are they going to be adding a governance product to the mix? And if you answered yes to yourself, you are 100% correct. So introducing Okta Identity Governance, a modern unified platform designed for an identity-first approach towards zero trust. So with this launch, we have introduced new governance capabilities such as access request and access certification. And I'll be going into these in a bit more detail in a minute. And then customers can leverage these governance capabilities on top of the rich set of out-of-the-box integrations Okta has with applications to automate the process of employee onboarding and offboarding end-to-end. With all of these capabilities, Okta Identity Governance is a comprehensive toolkit designed to meet your security and governance needs. Now let's get into some of the features that make up Okta Identity Governance. So first up, we have access requests. We make it very easy for employees to go in and request access to an application from the chat tool that they are already using, like Slack or Teams. It also has a machine learning driven request interface. So the more that it gets used, the more efficient it is going to become. And then on the flip side, managers, IT admins, app owners, whoever needs to approve access can do so right in those same chat tools. And this is definitely increasing the level of efficiency and productivity for all of your employees because we are meeting them right where they are. With this feature, there's also support for time-based access. So if somebody wants access to an application with particularly sensitive data, they can request access for an hour or a week or however long it's going to take to get a project done. And then once that time limit is over, they'll automatically get deprovisioned from that application. Next up, we have access certification. And this is where you can create and manage the whole access review process. And you can do it super easy and quickly in 5 simple steps. You can launch campaigns from this dashboard that will allow you to review who has access to which application and who is part of which Okta group. You can even decide who the reviewers should be and what specific users you want to take a look at. And then managers can approve right from their Okta view. And all of these functionalities really help streamline what some organizations are doing today through spreadsheets, believe it or not. But the key detail here is that because it's a unified platform, we can provide detailed information about each user, like when was the last time they accessed an application. So if a manager is tasked with a review for their team, they can see that employee A hasn't accessed this application for 6 months and confidently revoke that access, knowing that they don't need it to do their day-to-day job. And the last feature we'll touch on is out-of-the-box reporting. Admins can get out-of-the-box reports for access requests and access certifications. They are able to see who has access to an application in Okta and details as to why access was granted and when that access was last reviewed. So you can get these entire reports very easily. You can export them and then continue to drill down into the data from there. So as you can see, Okta Identity Governance introduces governance capabilities that are modern and simple to use to the Okta Identity Cloud. With this unified platform, customers will be able to leverage risk signals and access management information from their existing Okta deployment to drive improved security and compliance outcomes. This will allow them to truly use Okta as an identity control plane to effectively manage identities going forward. Also, Okta Identity Governance is lightweight and easy to deploy, resulting in faster time to value for customers. It requires minimal to no professional services and is bundled together with other products like Okta Lifecycle Management and Okta Workflows, giving customers true value for their money. So I'll close this presentation with one final takeaway. All of our product investments around identity management, security, governance, and privileged access is focused on one thing, our vision. It is to be your trusted partner and focus on building the right tools you need to implement a modern identity-centric security strategy that helps you tackle the challenges and demands of today and tomorrow. We really want to enable anyone to safely use any technology. So that ends the presentation portion of today. I do want to quickly, before we get into Q&A, I do want to introduce my colleague, Sam Katzen, who is here helping us with the questions that you guys have been sending in. Sam, if you want to.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you today to talk a little bit more about Okta Identity Governance. There's been a couple good questions in the chat. Maziel, I know there were some that you wanted to address as well.
Yeah, so we will get into those. And again, if you have any more questions, please feel free to send them in. Otherwise, we will just kind of go over some of the more commonly asked questions. So we have some questions around requests from ServiceNow. So the access request portion of governance does connect with ServiceNow. So there are various ways that you can connect it and still use ServiceNow as a ticketing system and configure it in a way that's going to make sense for your organization. Let's see.
There's one question about using identity governance for legacy apps that are not behind Okta. And yes, the question asker kind of brought this up, which is that it is possible to export CSV, import from the application, import that into Okta, run a certification campaign, automate that, then export the results back to that application. So that is possible.
Is there ability to use geolocation verification? I'm assuming that this is more on the authentication side, but we do have rules that can be set up for authentication purposes, depending on where the user is logging in from. If you are referring to, approving or revoking access based on a location, that is something different. Let's see. Is there an added cost for IGA? So IGA is sold as a bundle along with workflows and lifecycle management. If you are already a customer of workflows and or lifecycle management, it doesn't get automatically added, but you will see, immediate value by adding these governance capabilities to those products. So if you're interested in anything to do with that bundle or with pricing, definitely talk to your account manager.
There's another question here about what do we think makes Okta Identity Governance state of the art, and I think it's really a mindset shift that we're really excited about with OIG. And that mindset shift is that we really believe that there should be a unified solution between access management and identity governance. And so when you combine those two things and it's a tight integration, then there's a lot more benefits to customers. And one of the most, the thing that's kind of at the forefront of that is that all of the data that is being created on the access management side can flow into your governance decisions and solutions. And so things like event-based certifications are on their way. And all of that is ultimately going to make it so that you make better governance decisions. You can automate it, you can scale it, and you can do all of that with much less professional services and bespoke integrations required there. And so that's really what we think is exciting about it today. The product will continue to evolve and it'll meet more and more use cases. There's another question around Google Chat, and that's something that is potentially on the roadmap. Obviously, our mindset today with Slack, Microsoft Teams, that we really want to go to where end users are, that it makes it easy for them to make access requests, and ultimately makes it easier for IT to have kind of visibility and efficiency that all of us are striving for. And so adding more chat functionalities in the future is certainly something.
So we have a question around, is IAM download information about the user from the HR system? So the benefit of having governance on the same, Okta platform that we all know and love, similar to what, Sam was just saying, we have the visibility into when a user was able to last access, or when a user was able or access the application last, and we can make approval and revoke decisions based off of that. We also have reports that you can download that tell you that same information as well.
Yeah, and to piggyback, there was a couple questions on reporting as well. And so to piggyback on that, these are out-of-the-box reports, and they're going to be able to give you reports on certifications, on app usage, conceivably, on LCM, so lifecycle management functionalities, and those access requests and the justifications behind them. And so that all comes out of the box. If you want to build any bespoke reporting, that is possible via workflows. So there's a pretty broad set of outcomes that you can derive through Okta Identity Governance and that corresponding workflow solution. And there's another question here around tracking license usage. I think one of the benefits from those reports is not only that you have a sense of, hey, are we maintaining a least privileged solution here, but you also have this added benefit of being able to identify where maybe you do have over-licensing occurring, and whether those applications are actually being accessed and used by all of the users that it's provisioned to.
Yeah, will these capabilities be sold as separate SKUs? So right now, as I mentioned, this is sold as a bundle. You really see the value of governance as well as, lifecycle management and the extra capabilities that come with workflows when using it together. So we think you'll really find that that is the most beneficial way to use these products together. And then for access reviews, can the system record the fact that a manager has reviewed access for their teams? Yes. So we can see once a review has been completed, you can, as a manager, if you're in charge of doing those reviews within your own application that's on your Okta dashboard, you can see the progress of the different tasks that you have to review. And then admins can also see once a certification campaign has been completed as well.
Question here about the IGA solution and whether it works with Okta Managed Access. And today, that's really one of the best fits that we see out there is for all those applications or resources that are managed within Okta. There are workarounds for applications that are outside of that. We kind of discussed an access certification use case previously with the CSV downloads. Those are possible. And so it's just a question of perhaps what I would recommend doing is talking to your specific AE or CSN to get a little bit more into your specific use case to understand their account. Another question around IGA or privileged access requiring OIE. It will work with OIE, with Classic. And so regardless of which system you're currently on, OIG would be a good fit.
There is a question around managerial access reviews. Will OIG support managerial access reviews tailored towards the manager's direct reports? So when you are setting up a access certification campaign, you can determine who you want the reviewers to be. So whether it is the app owner or the employee's manager, that is all part of the campaign setup process. So you can definitely do that and have the right people reviewing the access for each app or group.
And this question around what the IGA tool is capable of, Okta Identity Governance, two of its core functionalities are around certification and application requests, access requests. Question around access certifications and users coming through org to org. I think that's a question that's worth discussing with your specific team. I think broadly speaking, as long as Okta Identity Governance is being licensed to all of the users involved, and it's possible. However, I think it's worth going a little bit deeper into that with your teams. You can figure out exactly how your use case fits. I know we're right at time, Maziel. And there have been a number of really great questions. Maziel, I'll let you close up any questions that we haven't answered. I'm sure we can get to the aftermath.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see, I think we have covered a good amount of stuff here. There is a little bit, so there is some, more technical questions. We do have these questions and do have access to them later, so we can definitely follow up if need be. Just want to thank you all for joining us this morning. We hope you are as excited about Okta Identity Governance as we are. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to your Okta AEs. I'm sure everyone here would be happy to talk to you more about that. So thanks again for joining and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you to both, Maziel. I really appreciate the conversation and answering the questions. Sam for joining for that Q&A. A really, really wonderful kind of 1-2 punch with the presentation and the chat there. Now, as Maziel just indicated, there are quite a few questions left, and we do want to make sure that those get answered. So we will make sure that those get sent to the Okta team. So don't worry if you asked a question that didn't get a specific response today. We will make sure that you get those answers back. So keep those questions coming in. If anything jumps into your mind in the next couple of minutes here as we wrap up, get those questions in. And the same is true for Strong DM as well. Any questions that are coming in, we will make sure that they get to the teams after we wrap here. All right, well, we are going to get to a prize giveaway in just a moment. But before we do, I want to point out that there's a prize up on the screen here, or excuse me, a prize. Wow. Friday brain and it's Thursday. There's a poll up on the screen here for you. You could look at it as a prize. If you click a button, you're going to get something back. That's winning a prize, right? Think of it as like a prize machine of demos and white papers. Who doesn't love that? Click on the poll and let the Okta team know what you would like in terms of follow-up. So data sheets, white papers, case studies, pricing information if you want to dig into a demo. All of that is available to you, and you can get exactly what you need just by clicking on that poll there. So take a minute now to do that. I'm also going to suggest that you head over to your Handouts tab, click on the handout, and be sure that you get the handout from Okta, Meeting Regulatory Framework and Standards Obligations with Okta Identity Governance. This is such a great follow-up to everything that we just dug into. And as Marcel and Sam indicated, there were a lot of questions and a lot of very specific questions about the specific issues that you're dealing with governance and compliance. So this is a great place to start. Download this paper, spend a little time scrolling through it, make sure you get to know it a little bit, and then certainly also make sure that you are following up with Okta and getting that follow-up information that you need. Again, an easy way to do that, just clicking on the poll right in front of you there. All right, well, while you're doing that, I am going to give away an actual prize, a non-content prize, and that is our $300 Amazon gift card. So we have 2 more of those to give away, and then I promise I will read the entire list as well. So our second winner, who is here live and present with us at the EcoCast of a $300 Amazon gift card today, is Chris Vanderhoof of Wisconsin. Chris Vanderhoof of Wisconsin. And our third winner is Luis Lopez of Texas. Luis Lopez of Texas. So all 3 of our winners today. Excuse me, Howard Fung. I couldn't breathe there for a second. I was too excited. About the prize winners. Are all 3 winners today: Howard Fung of California, Chris Vanderhoof of Wisconsin, and Luis Lopez of Texas. Now, we will be following up with all 3 of you after we wrap. We will also be following up with our 2 best questions gift cards from each, the one from each of our sessions today. So stay tuned for that. Okay, now if you've been sitting here on the EcoCast today and thinking that this seems like a great time and you would maybe be interested in presenting at a future event, maybe a megacast, an EcoCast, a summit, whatever you have in mind, we would absolutely love to have that conversation with you. Myself, Scott, and Keith would all like to chat with you. So shoot us an email at connect@actualtechmedia.com and we can see what might be a good fit for you. So keep that in mind. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to once again thank all of our speakers here with us today from StrongDM and from Okta, and really for making this EcoCast possible. I also want to extend a special thank you to all of you for attending, for asking some great questions. I don't know about you folks, but I felt like we got into some really cool stuff today. Interesting discussions that are affecting all of us, as we said at the start, things that cross that line between professional lives and personal lives, and discussions around technology and identity and privacy and compliance and government and all these things that are things that we think about in our individual lives and in our lives at work. And that makes it a really layered and interesting conversation to get into. And what I really appreciate was everyone here with us today not only asked some great questions, we saw some sort of thought-provoking ideas, we got some feedback, and that really brings up the energy for our speakers, it brings up the energy for the other people around you, and it's just a lot more fun for all of us. So I want to thank all of you for bringing your authentic curiosity and willingness to explore to our conversation today. I hope we will continue to see that. I feel like we always get that from you guys. We've got a great community here at Actual Tech Media, and boy, do we appreciate that. So a big thank you to all of you. I hope you've gotten some interesting ideas, some tips, and feel a little bit more informed, maybe a little more equipped to tackle some of those identity challenges that you are facing at your organization and start to look for those opportunities. Now, before you take off today, I want to make sure that you mark your calendars and come back to join us. We have a summit happening on Wednesday, May 31st. That's next week, Wednesday. Oh my gosh, it's the end of May already. Wow. All right. So May 31st, next week, streamlining, securing, and protecting cloud IT and business operations. This is going to be another really interesting conversation because obviously those are big topics, right? Streamlining is big, securing is big, protecting is big, and then we're hitting it across all levels of your IT infrastructure. So this is a really neat conversation to get into. Please do come and join us for that. Again, that's Wednesday, May 31st, 11 a.m. Eastern, so a little bit earlier for those summits, 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific. Well, I hope that I get to see you all there and we get to chat. I think Scott Becker will be with us that day as well, so it should be a really fun conversation. And I look forward to chatting with you all at that summit or maybe another webinar between now and then. Whatever you have on your calendar will be a good time. And until then, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.